Hey, Noah Glenn Bennett here, founder of Against the Tide Media, and I come bearing a message. Our channel is your channel, so if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe if you haven't already. Like this video. You'd be surprised by how much leaving a simple comment helps boost YouTube's algorithms and puts our channel in front of so many more people. I actually made a video like this a while back, and apparently it helped. A lot. The team and I are working harder than ever to create content with the cast and crew of your favorite light-inspiring movies and shows. And surprise! Now we're making our own. Enter Anti, a story that dares to ask if even the man who could be used as the Antichrist has a chance for redemption. You can learn more about how to support that project at antiseries.com. Thank you so much. On with the show.
Tide Media fans, welcome to Talking Back with Tera and Barb. I'm Tera.
And I'm Barb. And we are so excited today to be talking with one of my favorite disciples from The Chosen.
He also hosts the podcast, Your Limp, which has been one of the most powerful podcasts I've listened to.
And recently he starred in 1883 and Washington's Armor.
Jordan, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we were finally able to sync up and find a good time to do this.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Been a crazy winter.
Yeah, it's been pretty busy. So it's nice having a little bit of time to kind of breathe before we get started again. But I'm still excited.
Are you excited to put the potato sack back on?
Yes, I'm so excited. I've been trying. I'm still a little pale, but I've been trying to get outside a little more so they don't have to spray tan me as much. I'm so excited. I can't wait. I think my first day is I think I start the first week of May. So other people are starting the last week of April, I believe. But I'll be starting here pretty soon.
You got the scripts and everything?
I did, yes. They're, as you know, obviously I can't say much about them, but one of the things I can say are things Dallas has already said publicly.
This season is a good deal longer than the previous seasons. It's still 8 episodes, but it's roughly almost 40 pages longer than the previous seasons combined. So I think that is averages out to 4 or 5 extra pages each episode. So that's 4 or 5 extra minutes each episode. So that'll be fun. It's also, in my opinion, the best season yet. There's so much that you don't expect, which, is you kind of expect the unexpected with The Chosen, but there's so many developments within relationships and characters that bond that you wouldn't expect. And there's a lot of really cool directions that they take it. And I'm so excited to get started.
Awesome. Jordan, I love how you start your podcast off when you ask your interviewee just to tell about their backstory and a little bit about their family life growing up. So I'm just going to toss that question right off to you to get things started.
Sure. I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. And it was me, my mom, my sister, my brother, and my grandpa, who is actor Barry Corbin. So we grew up with him. Really, we were very fortunate. We had 15 acres and a bunch of animals, and I'd go explore in the woods and play in the creek and was super active. And it was nice, too, because, especially earlier in life, being in and out of the hospital, I had a bunch of surgeries by the time I was 8. So I was home a lot recovering and I was immunocompromised. So I couldn't really be around other kids that much for a while and had meningitis, all sorts of stuff. So it was nice having all of that land and the animals that since I couldn't be in school as much at a younger age, I was able to go down to the barn and sit on our horses, or we had longhorns and buffalo that they were gentle giants. We could just sit on them while they grazed. And it was a really, really fun, childhood. My family was close and my mom was super supportive. Once I found acting at 6, she drove me to every single audition, every rehearsal, every play. we were always like a few minutes late. My mom's never on time, but she still drove me to everything. So without her, I never, would have been able to gain all of the experience that I did and get all of the practice that I got acting because she was the most supportive person in the world.
Moms are important.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's get into a little more modern day, but back in the first century modern day.
Yeah.
Because obviously a lot of our fans are very interested in The Chosen. That's how Against Tide Media got started. So tell us about auditioning for The Chosen, how you found it, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was, I was working at a acting school in Dallas called KD Conservatory. And that's where I went to college. I got my associate's degree from there, moved out to LA. I'd already lived out there on and off before, but then I moved out full time for about 4 years. And it just wasn't my time. I had friends that were quote unquote making it big. And I was comparing myself and feeling bad about myself, and also felt alone for such a big place. It is very easy to feel isolated and alone out there. And yeah, it was just, I wasn't getting any traction. I was starting to have some complications with my hip, so I needed to get an operation for that. I met my wife who lived back in Texas. So I was like, you know what? It's not my time out in LA right now. I'm going to move home, get my hip fixed. So I, we were dating at the time, but I was like, I can be with my girlfriend, let her finish college. And then maybe we'll move out to LA together after that. And I ended up getting my hip surgery. A few months later, we got married. And then a year after that, we had our first daughter. So I was like, oh, I guess we're in Texas now. This is where we're staying. But having our daughter definitely added pressure for us, because it wasn't just us anymore. Because we were willing to, she believed in me and I believed in this passion and this drive that I had for acting. So we had faith that it would pay off eventually. But we were fine living as, with me being a struggling actor. And, she worked at a golf course for a little bit. We got by paycheck to paycheck and all of that. And that was fine with us. But then having a kid, as y'all know, it adds pressure because it's no longer just you. And I was scared because I'm not qualified to do anything else. And I didn't really know how I could make enough money to provide for our family while also having the flexibility and freedom to keep pursuing my career as an actor. So the only thing I could think of was, well, I'll go back to this college I went to and see if I could teach. And, because I had enough experience under my belt that I thought, I could teach the teens and the kids, and because they did kids acting classes too. And then they were like, hey, there's an opening in admissions. Do you want to do that? You just give tours at the school and talk to potential students, and then you enroll them if they want to go to the college. So I did that for a couple of years, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. And it was a steady paycheck for the first time in my life, but it was also frustrating because I'm around other artistic people, and that was great getting to talk about acting, but it also just made that hunger even more prominent. I was like, I want to act. I don't want to be working in this office, like making phone calls, trying to convince people to come to this college. Like I want to be out acting. So it was frustrating, but I kind of felt stuck because I couldn't quit. I didn't have anything else. I needed money. We had our other daughter, and then we got pregnant with our son. So it's like, what do I do? And then one day I got an email from my agent. So for those who don't know, whenever you have an agent, they submit you for roles. They get the breakdowns, which is the description of all the characters for, movies and TV shows and commercials and all sorts of stuff. And they read the breakdowns, and one of them will say, like, for instance, for The Chosen, it probably said something along the lines of the character. It's like 20 to 30, looks like he could be like Jewish or Middle Eastern, has dark hair, dark eyes, and then a description of like the character's personality. So once they see that, they're like, oh, cool, Jordan fits that description. We'll send them his information and see if they want him to audition. And they did. They saw my very outdated headshot and resume.
You have a role to play in all of this.
Do I?
asked me to audition for Matthew originally. And I saw the audition invitation in my email, and it was like for like a Wednesday at noon or something like that. But that day I was pretty busy. I had a bunch of like tours of the school. I had interviews with potential students. And I hadn't booked a single acting job in like probably 4 years. It had been a long time. And I didn't really have much hope that or optimism that I would book this part, because history showed that I wasn't going to. So I was about to email my agent and say, hey, I won't be able to make it to this audition. I'm going to cancel. And then I looked down and it said that the audition was being held in the building that I worked in. And not only that, but it was literally like a 30-second walk from my desk. I walk out of my office, I go down a short little hall, there's the lobby, and then I go down another short hall, and that's the room I was auditioning in. So I was like, oh, I guess I could just like in between interviews, just go in there and do this quick audition. So I did. And the casting directors, at first it was just them. And they were like, oh, that was great for the callback, work on a Hebrew accent. And I was like, or an Israeli accent. And I was like, oh, cool. I guess I'm getting a callback. And then I came back for that like a week or two later and met Dallas and Justin Overlander for the first time. And Justin was one reading with me. And that time I read for Andrew. And I remember seeing two other actors who I've seen on a ton of commercials, or local Dallas guys. And they are super talented. But I saw them there auditioning for the same role I was auditioning for. And I was like, well, I'm not getting this part. Like, one of them is getting it for sure, because one, they look more Middle Eastern than me. Two, they are working actors. I'm not. I'm working in this office. And they did end up booking parts on The Chosen. They play Eden's brothers on the show.
There he is. Josephat, Avram.
And I'm so happy for them. They're really great guys. But I didn't think I would get it. And then a few days after that audition, I was leaving, and Dallas got up and like shook my hand and gave me a hug and was like, hey, you're pretty good at this acting thing. You should stick with it. And I was like, oh, thanks. And that made me feel good. And then I got the call from my agent saying that I had booked Little James and I was working 4 days on it. I didn't do much in those first 4 episodes. I was at the Shabbat dinner and then the Miracle of the Fish. But I was like, yeah, I booked something, so that's exciting. And I thought best case scenario that the scene would turn out good, that I did with Giovanni and Liz and Jonathan and then Anne and Alok as Barnaby and Shula. I thought that, that scene would turn out and and that I could use it for my demo reel. And that's what I thought the best case scenario was. And then, next thing that happened is we're about to get started on season 3.
But it looks like we're past that.
I'm glad I was wrong about that.
Yeah, Jordan, I'm so glad that you walked down that hall and did that audition, and partly because of your role in The Chosen and your podcast and just your reach. But to get back to The Chosen, as we know, we don't film in order. But for you, was the first film that you filmed on set, was it the Shabbat dinner?
It was, yeah. Okay. So we went out there, it was in October, I believe. Or no, let's see, September, October. Yeah, October. And
would it have been October 2019?
2018.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's now been this year. It'll be, let's say 19, 20, 20. Yeah. 4 years ago. That's crazy. But yeah, it was 2018 because I had just had my second daughter. She was just like a couple months old. And yeah, so we went, I went out there for the Shabbat dinner, and I remember I saw Dallas on set, and he was like, hey, I'm so glad you're here. And one thing he said, he was like, I can't wait for you to work with these other actors. They're all really good. And he said specifically, Liz and Jonathan are two of the best actors I've ever worked with. So I can't wait for you to meet them and to work with them.
The whole
is very sweet. It's very precious. And, the problem will be if it's too precious. So don't overdo too much. This will sound like a weird note, but too much warmth with each other. Like if there's too much of this and this, it'll start to, like, even if it feels natural. As I was watching it during rehearsal, the lines say so much, and that's good news. But right on the verge of just being theater. Oh, hello!
It's like, it's so weird watching it now. One, I had like such little facial hair. My hair was short and I looked so much younger. But I remember watching it now, like Giovanni and Liz and Jonathan, like those are some of my closest friends. Mm-hmm. But at the time I didn't know any of them. And we were just all starting out on this journey. So it was kind of cool seeing the very beginning of it, like my very first day with any of these people. But it was so cold that night. It was like below freezing. We were chewing on ice cubes. So it would stabilize the temperature in our mouth so you wouldn't see our breath. And my first, y'all may have heard this story, but my first time meeting Jonathan, I was freezing and I had a jacket on and I was like shivering. And I was actually coming down with a cold as well. The next day I felt horrible. But I was cold. I wasn't feeling great. And I had this jacket on. And then I saw this figure walking towards me and he was backlit. There was a big light behind him. So I just saw like his silhouette, and he walked towards me and I saw him taking off his jacket. And as he got close, I made out his face and it was Jonathan, but I was like, oh, it's Jesus. And he put his jacket on me on top of my other jacket. And he was like, hey, it's nice to meet you. I'm Jonathan. And I was like, whoa, this guy is like really in character. But that's, the kind of person he is, especially when he's on set and when he's in that mindset. He has such a presence to him and he's so good at what he does.
Oh, hey. We didn't see there.
Reset. Here we go. Going again.
Just making some mud, spit mud.
But doing that and then meeting Giovanni and us being kind of, we always make a joke because at first we were the disciples. Like we've gotten to do a lot more as the show's gone on. And this season we have some really good stuff too. But those first 4 episodes, we were the apostles that didn't really have as much to do. But we made jokes about like, it's okay because we were the first apostles. We were the very first followers. So that's fine. Like we'll get our time.
You remember when it was just the 3 of us? You ever miss those days?
So we kind of joked about that, but then, watching Liz and her scene, reading like the Shabbat prayer and all of that, it was just, everyone was so great and so friendly. It was, such a great experience. And like I said, I thought best case scenario, the scene would turn out well and I'd use it for my reel, but just based on my past experiences, I didn't expect it to continue just because I was never lucky enough to be a part of a show or something that I got to work consistently on. And I just couldn't imagine that happening. I thought everyone did a great job, but I was like, it'll after 4 episodes, that'll be it. And it was a fun experience. I'm so grateful that I've gotten to be a part of it.
Yeah. Even when you're not saying anything, your facial expressions and your little looks of your little smiles, and some of my favorite things that just make me smile every time, like even in the Shabbat dinner, when you smile at Jesus after he winks at Barnaby, it's just,
yeah.
Thank
you.
Did you even realize that some of those facial expressions would be caught on camera, or did you just always assume that anything could be caught on camera, obviously, but
yeah.
Did you wait till it was actually finished?
Yeah, it's something that like you always hope. There are moments where, like one take, for instance, in season 2, when we're in the temple and Jesus heals the man with the hand. Yeah. There's a part where Yoshi, who plays Philip, and I kind of have like we both lean over and look at each other and kind of do this smile. Yep. And we only did that one take. It was just kind of in the moment. I happened to look over and he looked at me and it was kind of like, oh, because it was just kind of this knowing smile of like, he's doing it again. Because at that point, we've seen it so many times. It's not as shocking as, when he heals the leper earlier in the show. So but it's still exciting. So that was a little moment that we did. And I remember thinking like, oh, I hope they caught that, because you never know. There's so many times where you will just in the moment you get like you feel something and your face shows that, but the camera's not even on you. So yeah, there are things like that. And also when the camera is on you, so like the part where I kind of smiled at Jesus after he winks, I remember for that, Giovanni and I come in, we have a few lines at the beginning, and then we're just kind of listening for the rest of the scene.
Here.
Do I know you?
Oh, sorry, I'm James. This is Thaddeus. We were told this would be a good place to come. We can leave if it's awkward.
Oh no, please come in. You are most welcome here.
So, can we help?
Oh, no. Well, yes, I don't know what I am doing.
I see food. That's a victory.
But still, after they got everyone else's coverage and they filmed Liz and Alok and Anne and Jonathan, then they were like, well, let's get a one shot of, Giovanni and Jordan's reactions, just so then they can have something to cut to. And they always do that. Even if you're not speaking in a scene, at some point, usually towards the end, they do the scene again and just get everyone's reactions that's not speaking. So they can use it when they're editing. So I remember they did that, and it's always a balance. A lot of newer actors or actors that maybe don't have as much experience, or just really eager. Like it's easy to do more than you should in those moments, and to like have bigger reactions because you're like, this is my time to shine. I need to impress them. But I think the best advice for any actors, like if you're in a scene and even if you don't have any lines, even if you're just an extra, when the camera's on you, that's one of the most distracting things for me. If I'm watching a movie or a show, watching extras that are overacting. And Dallas can't stand that either. Like if we're on set, he always tells people like, don't do too much. I can always get you to do a little more, but like, I'll tell you if I need more from you. But, you don't need to be like slapping each other on the back and like doing big fake laughs and stuff like that. Because it's cheesy looking when you do that. Yeah, it's just like really genuinely listening to the scene, even though you've heard it 20 times already and like shooting it, just genuinely listening and watching their expression. So in that moment, like earlier when Barnaby makes the joke about something good can come from Nazareth.
I'm Jesus of Nazareth.
Well, apparently something good can come from Nazareth. What?
I remember like thinking like in that moment, if we're the first followers of this guy and he's our teacher and we believe in him, and someone just said something like someone just poked fun at where he's from or insulted him, my initial reaction is kind of like, wait, who does this guy think he is? And like, I kind of have to stop myself from saying something where I'm almost like not quite going over the table at him, but like, hey, like, do you know who you're talking to? And then when I see Jesus wink, it's like, okay, cool. And that little moment of feeling defensive in one take, it made the cut. And that's kind of inspired a few other decisions I've made later on where I view little James as kind of this, he's a little guy and yet he's very trusting and he's very loving, like he's there for people. But he also has a little bit of, I imagine being a little guy in ancient Israel, you would have to have a little bit of toughness to you, and kind of be willing and able to stand up for yourself and for others. Otherwise you wouldn't have made it back then. So there's a little bit of fire to little James that you'll see every now and then, whether it's a reaction.
Well, are you serious? I'm worse off than I was.
Yes, you are.
I thought you said you were good at this.
I thought I was.
I can't get out of this now.
Sorry, James.
Yeah.
My scene with Thomas in season 2, you can see a little bit of fire in there. So I'm excited to keep exploring that in future seasons.
One thing that is annoying me though is these people, they are believing in him and praising him. And don't get me wrong, that's great, but it's because he's healing them. The Samaritans.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he said. That's all they needed.
I know. I just don't know how many of them would believe in him if he wasn't healing them.
So I have to ask,
I think I can guess.
I have two questions. Forgive me, but I speak plainly. What is your malady? Forgive me, I don't mean to offend.
It's fine. It's a form of paralysis. It's caused problems since birth.
It's almost time for evening meal. Are you hungry?
So then why... I mean... Why hasn't he healed you? How do you watch all these healings today? Does it bother you? If I had your struggle and I was watching what was happening today, I'd demand it.
I don't know if I should. It just doesn't feel right. You know, and I suppose I've just been grateful that he called me to follow him in spite of it, but it's never come up, not even once. And I'm just afraid that if I mention it to him, it can change his mind about me or something.
When you get ready to prep for a scene or a season, well, did you get the full season 3 script?
Yeah. So usually, like for those of us who are series regulars and that are in most, if not all episodes, usually they'll give all of the scripts. And, you know, even if there's like scenes that I don't speak in or whatever, I still get all of it just so because I may be in the scene, or a scene before that may influence how I'm going to react in the next scene. So it's all relevant information for people that are in a lot of the show. There's some instances, like if you're someone that's in a couple episodes or a couple of scenes, you may just get those scenes. So it depends. But yeah, I got all the scripts, and the way I prepare is typically, and I'm very grateful for this, but I've always been good at memorizing. Like I've never had a problem with memorization. Once I read it like 3 times, it's pretty much there. Then I just have to refresh my memory when I get a little bit closer. Yeah. So I go through, I read it, and I score my script, which is basically, I highlight all of my dialogue with one color, then I highlight all of my actions with another color. And then I go through with a pen and just write notes. Like if my character is saying one thing, but the intention is something different. There's an exercise in acting class, like where 2 people could pair up and you do a whole scene, but you can only say one phrase. So the phrase could be, I love you. So you say, I love you. And then the next person says it like, I love you. And then like you go back and forth, and it's like the emotion, like you're saying the same words, but the intent behind those words is different each time. So I do that. I'm like, okay, little James is saying this, but what does he really mean? What is his intention behind those words? So then I start figuring all of that out. And as far as rehearsing, I do it typically just on my own. Like when I'm driving, I'll go through the dialogue in my head, or say it out loud, but I don't rehearse too much with other people before, because I don't want it to be over rehearsed. On occasion though, like when we're all in the hotel and we know that tomorrow we have a big scene with, you know, because there's like the big walk and talk scene with like all of the apostles talking, stuff like that. You know, everyone says something in those scenes, like, so even if it's 1 or 2 lines, but the whole cast will get together and we'll rehearse those scenes together, like in the conference rooms at the hotels that we're staying at, just so we can have it perfect for like the day that we're shooting. Because if we show up and we haven't rehearsed it, then we're going to have to take out a couple hours to get it right before we can ever start shooting it. So we want to be ready. So we do that. And then me and Joey for the big scene with him, we rehearsed that like crazy for weeks leading up to, even months leading up to that scene, because we knew that whole scene was going to be one take. So we were like, and we're at the end of it, almost at the very end. So we were like, we can't mess up for sure, because it's one thing if like Yoshi and Paris mess up at the beginning, because then they just take a few steps back. But if we mess up, it ruins the whole like 10 minutes that came before it. So we rehearsed that a whole lot. So there are exceptions to how much I rehearse or don't. But like there's a scene I have this next season that I'm intentionally not going to rehearse really at all, because of the nature of the scene, I want it to be as real and in the moment as possible. So it all depends on the scene and the circumstances. It's going to be a good one. There's some really good stuff this season. I know Dallas had mentioned in the live stream I did with him that I have a scene with Jesus where, you know, it's kind of a continuation of my scene with Thomas, of me confronting him or talking to him about my condition and why I'm not healed. So that scene in particular is one there's some other scenes and some characters I'm excited to interact with, but that scene in particular I'm really excited about, because I've never had a scene with Jonathan. Like, I've been in scenes with him and maybe my character has said something to him or he says something to me from time to time, but I haven't had any like big scenes with him yet. So I'm really excited about that.
My condition, which you haven't healed.
Do you want to be healed?
Yes, of course, if that's possible.
I think you've seen enough to know it's possible.
Why haven't you?
Because I trust you.
But the others, there's so much more.
So much more what?
I don't know. Stronger? Better at this?
James, I love you. But I don't want to hear that ever again.
I know how easy it is to say the Song of David, that I fearfully and wonderfully made. But it doesn't make this any easier. And in this group, it doesn't make me feel like any less of a burden.
A burden? First of all, it is far easier to deal with your slow walking than it is to deal with Simon's temper. Trust me. Are you fast? Do you look impressive when you walk? Maybe not. But these are things the Father doesn't care about. You are going to do more for me than most people ever dream. So many people need healing in order to believe in me. Or they need healing because their hearts are so sick. That doesn't apply to you. And many are healed or not healed because the Father in heaven has a plan for them which may be a mystery. And we remember what Job said. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. When you pass from this earth and you meet your Father in heaven, where Isaiah promises you will leap like a deer, you will be healed. It's only a matter of time.
We're going to transition to your podcast before too long, but a couple more questions. I'm going to throw two questions out to you and you can answer either one. One is, I'd love to know like a funny, embarrassing, just great story on set, or you guys eat a lot on set, right? And do you legit get to eat? There was a time where I played in a salad for 4 hours and never got to eat it because of continuity. So take your pick at one of those questions.
Let's see. So we do, I'll do both because one of them's a shorter answer. So we do eat on set or like in scenes. Those scenes are usually fun because the food's pretty good. It's a lot of bread, a lot of like fruit. There's like raisins, there's apples, there's cheese, there's all sorts of stuff. So that's fun. But you got to be careful because the scenes go on forever. And those are like scenes, like if you're eating a lot on the first take, you have to eat that same amount every take so it matches. And then you're just like, and especially if it's a bread, you just feel bloated and gross by the end. But yeah, usually those scenes, I don't have lunch or dinner or whenever we're filming those, when we break for lunch or dinner, just because I've been eating the whole time already. But it is fun. Like the food is edible. Usually if it's not, they'll tell us. But usually when we do those scenes, we can eat pretty much anything on the table. And they have like grape juice they pour in our cups or water or whatever. So yeah, it's fun. But let's see, a funny thing that's happened on set. Let me think here. Okay. There's a lot. I'm trying to think of one that everyone will really appreciate though. So, there are so many times on set. Like a lot of it is just fun stuff that we do. There's like the cast tent. So when we're not filming or when they're setting the shots up, we all kind of hang out in there. It's not necessarily funny, but we play a lot of movie games. It's where we call it the movie game, where I would name an actor or a movie, and then you would name the next person in the circle would name, like if I say the Avengers, then you would name an actor that's in the Avengers. And then I have to name another movie that actor is in. And then you have to name another actor in that movie. So we do that a lot. I'm the champion, I'm proud to say. But George and...
Are you competitive? I bet you're competitive, right? Yeah.
Very, yeah.
You want to win.
Yes, yeah, big time.
What if you're arm wrestle?
And George, who plays John, and Noah, who plays Andrew, those are the two that always give me a run for my money. It usually comes down to the three of us. But we do that, and that's a lot of fun. This one, okay, so it's kind of funny, but a little gross too. So when we're doing the wedding scene and we're all dancing, so anyone that knows me, like, or that's seen me on set, I always have a football and we're always playing football. And it was no different in season 1. We were always throwing it around, but because of that, we were like, I have really tough feet. Like I could walk on glass, I could walk on anything and it doesn't hurt. They're just like so calloused because I'm always barefoot. So I was running around barefoot because it's easier than running in flip-flops, playing football on like the hard gravel, where we parked our cars by our trailers in season 1. And I did that, and I guess I got a really bad blister. Then later it was like the blister got like, it was huge, and it didn't hurt that bad because, like, you know, I don't have a whole lot of feeling in my feet as it is. But and we were doing the dancing scene where we're all like going in circles and where we're singing and stuff like that at the wedding scene. And I felt like I put my foot down and it felt really uncomfortable. And I was like, do I have like is there a leaf or something stuck under there? But the skin, I guess the blister had broken at some point, and this big flap of my skin had like folded under. So it was just, I had a big flap of skin hanging off my foot during that scene. So in between, I had to run over. I showed my castmates and they were all grossed out. And then I had to go over to Chris Gallup, our set medic, and he just had to cut it off and wrap it with a skin color like wrapping and send me back out there. But yeah, there's been some instances like that where, you know, there'll be like a little minor injury or something like that on set. But that was rough. Then my foot did hurt after that because then it was just like, you know, raw skin underneath.
So you love to play football. We know that. We've seen that. Are there any other sports that you like to play or watch or?
So football is the only one I really watch regularly. Like I watch every single Cowboys game, unfortunately. But whether it's preseason, postseason, the like regular season, whatever, I watch every game. And that's been a fun like cast bonding experience because we have a lot of castmates who are fans. I know Austin is a Saints fan, and then Joey's a Chargers fan, and Giovanni's a Lions fan. And Yasmin is also a Cowboys fan. So we would all like get together in Utah during this last football season, or not last one, the year before. And we'd watch the games together in our hotel rooms and wear our jerseys and cheer for our teams with each other. So that was always really fun. But yeah, no, I'll watch other stuff if it's on. I root. I don't know anything about basketball or baseball. I just root for like the home teams if I'm watching. But as far as playing though, like football, I could play all day, every day. But if someone has a baseball and they want to play catch, or if people are playing basketball, I still enjoy that too. I like being active. I actually beat, I think it was Yoshi who plays Philip, and then Allah who plays Simon Z, and Austin, I think it was, who plays Nathaniel. I beat the three of them at horse whenever we were shooting season 2. And it's not because I'm better at basketball. All of them are way better than me. But my strategy in horse is shooting the most, like the simplest, easiest shots. The ones that I know without a doubt I can make, because inevitably someone that goes after me is going to miss because they're overthinking it. And I ended up beating all of them with that strategy. So I always like to rub that in their face every now and then.
Well, Jordan, your podcast, What's Your Limp? I think you've just kind of inspired maybe in the world, right? With how open and authentic you've been, especially with episode 1, where you shared your story. Most of us don't want to share our story. We want to keep it in the closet. We don't tell anyone. We wear our masks. But you've kind of become our big brother. You went out there and shared your story. And you've kind of, I think, challenged us that we can all tell our story. Like, we don't want to tell our story because we're afraid that someone will make fun of us or won't like us, or there's that shame. So how did you decide to tell your story, or how did you get to that place where you could? Because the average person, we just can't.
Yeah. I had always been pretty like open with my feelings to an extent. I've always like led with my emotions more. I've always been, which maybe that's why I got into acting. But that's something like I had a lot more friends that were girls than boys because growing up, because they were more likely to have like a deep conversation with you and to like connect on an emotional level, when guys are just, like wrestling and stuff, especially at that age. So that was something I've always been comfortable with. But when it came to really deep insecurities about like my limp, or about, maybe something else that's physical, or having as a teenager suicidal thoughts and things like that, those were things I didn't talk about much because it was embarrassing, and I didn't want to, like, as far as depression and suicidal tendencies, that was embarrassing because I felt like other people are going to, judge me for that, or they're going to think less of me because I felt those things, like things that you tell yourself that in hindsight, I'm like, no, that people care, they want to help. But I didn't think of it that way at the time. And then when it came to my limp and other physical insecurities, I didn't want to talk to people about that because I didn't want to draw attention to any of it. I would rather pretend that my limp wasn't there, or if I am going to bring it up, I'm going to make fun of it because I feel like that's what other people, from my past experiences being bullied, I was like, well, I'm going to beat them to the punch. I'm going to make fun of myself before they can make fun of me. So that was kind of how I dealt with all of that. And then it started to change. Like, I always had friends and, my wife and my mom and all these people that love me and accept me. And they never cared about my limp, or the fact that I had one. And that made me feel good, but it was still, I still had the insecurities. But then once I had kids and I saw how much they love me, and like my daughter, I even asked her just out of curiosity, I was like, would you want daddy to walk, quote unquote, normal? Would you want me to walk without my limp? And she was like, no, like that. She couldn't imagine that was like, she hated the idea of me walking any different than I do because I'm her dad and that's how I walk. She doesn't want me to be a different person. And I would be if it wasn't for the things that I've had my whole life. So that kind of got the ball rolling as far as how I started to view myself, because I was like, if these little kids who I love more than anything in the world feel that same way about me and they can love and accept me, then why can't I do that to myself? Why can't I love and accept myself? And then I started thinking of like other people that I know that have a limp or something, a disability or something that makes them different. I would never look at them and think less of them or think that's ugly or bad. If anything, I look at the people that I care about. I look at the things that make them different and unique and special. And I'm like, I love that about them. Just like my kids and my wife and my mom view my limp. So I started thinking of things in that way a little bit. But I still felt a lot of insecurities because I, had casting directors comment on it and agents comment on it and had been replaced from things. And also my career wasn't going the way I wanted it to. I wasn't booking anything, and my friends were, and I felt bad about myself as an actor. And I was like, am I good? Am I going to be able to make it? And it was frustrating because I always felt like I was given this passion and this talent and this desire for acting, but then I was also given this curse of a disability, is how I viewed it. And I was like, why would I be given both of those things? Because this disability is going to keep me from doing this thing that I feel like I was given. And it was just, I didn't understand why I would have been given this like blessing and this curse. But now I see them both as blessings. And Dallas and The Chosen genuinely is a huge reason for that, because him embracing my limp and making it part of my character, and allowing, not even allowing, but also it forced me to be vulnerable. And it's easy playing a character if he's nothing like you, or if I'm playing a French bad guy in Washington's Armor or something, that's easy. But and it's not that it's easy. I still had to do a lot of work for it, but it's emotionally, it's not scary. It's fun. The challenge is fun. But then whenever you are doing something where you're not just playing someone that's like you, but you're playing a character that is addressing your biggest insecurity, that was scary. And then I did it, and I was like, I saw the support from my castmates and from Dallas and from the fans once it aired, and how I had people reaching out and saying things about little James and how that made them feel represented, or all of that kind of stuff. So then when I started the podcast, I started having even more people reach out, like people saying my daughter gets bullied, or, I was bullied as a kid, and people that don't even have physical disabilities, that are just, they've gone through depression or have had body image issues or whatever. And that's, the more I've opened up, the more other people have opened up. And that's shown me none of us are alone. We're all struggling with something, and we all have a limp. As I say on the podcast, I've just learned that, like, by doing that, that's helped me to embrace and love the things that make me different, and to not view them as a weakness. And that just because I'm different doesn't mean I'm broken or that I need to be healed. And I think that at least not in the way that you think you do. And I think that that's kind of my goal, is to help other people do the same and to learn to love whatever their, respective limp might be.
Well, thank you for that, Jordan. And just like you said, because of your role, it allowed you to be vulnerable. And now you have that podcast for those that are listening in. If you've not heard What's Your Limp, especially episode 1, just go listen to it. It's amazing. I think by you being vulnerable, it's allowed us all to choose to be a little bit more vulnerable. And still, how you said the thing that you wanted to hide, you now love. What a transformation, right? Because all those things that we don't want to talk about it because it's hurt. And here you're saying, man, I love this. So you have been, you've reached through your podcast to this individual here, just encouraging me to be vulnerable and being real. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. And I'm, even beyond just learning to love yourself a little more, I feel like if we're vulnerable, like in this conversation, even these kinds of meaningful, intimate conversations and relationships is what like life is all about. What's the point of going through life if you're not having these deep, meaningful, intimate relationships with the people that you love, and with even the people that you just meet? And like on the podcast, I interview people that I had never met before previously, but then afterwards you feel a bond with them, you feel a connection to them, because you both opened up to each other and you shared a little something with each other. And by doing that, it creates a ton of empathy for others. And I think that's another important aspect of it. So yeah, I appreciate you letting me come on here to open up a little bit to y'all.
Yeah, thank you. Jordan.
Of course.
I've loved listening to, I haven't listened to all of them, but I've listened to quite a few of your podcasts and they're great. I just listened, got it in today, Tim McGraw.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, it was good. That's really awesome.
I was really excited how, because on set we had a bunch of conversations about some of the stuff that we spoke about in the interview, but we spoke a lot about, our kids, and he had opened up about his struggles with addiction and stuff like that. Because, you just have hours sitting around on set. So I got to know him pretty well then. And then getting him on the podcast, I wasn't super sure how vulnerable and open he would get, because it's one thing if you're just having a one-on-one conversation off to the side on set somewhere, but doing a podcast where, any number of people could listen to it. And also when you have a public image to uphold and people view you a certain way, especially when you're at his, celebrity status, I wasn't sure what to expect, but he was very open and transparent about, a lot of stuff. So I thought that was really cool. And I hope that that can help some people do the same.
When you're doing your podcast, getting into the kind of the nitty gritty of it, how much research do you do, or do you try to let it be a little bit more organic, or do you try to research your guest quite a bit?
It depends. For Tim, for instance, I had already had so many conversations with him. I knew what I wanted to talk about. And same with like when I had Jonathan on or things like that. I don't really typically, when it's someone I know, I don't do much research. I may look up a couple of things, but if it's someone I haven't met before, I do like to do a little bit of digging around just to find some interesting things to talk about. A lot of the time when I email someone and am trying to get them on the podcast, if I haven't met them before, I'll ask them, are there any, topics you're really passionate about? Like, or is there an insecurity that you've had or something that you've overcome that you want to talk about? So I'll ask specific things like that, because maybe there's something that they'll tell me that I won't be able to find anywhere online. So I usually ask them, and then I'll go just do some Google searches for, 30 minutes or so and write down some rough questions of like, basically what I want to ask them. But then I let the conversation just kind of flow, and we'll go off on little like side conversations and talk about other things. And I try to let it just kind of flow organically typically.
Jordan, from your podcast, I typed this out. It said, you mentioned one time, don't hide from your insecurities, learn from them, study them, and embrace your securities. Learn why your insecurities are there. So I used to have this break between high school and gymnastics. So it was when I was a freshman in high school, and I was an hour and a half. And I used to hide in the bathroom. And I think it was because I didn't want to visit with anyone, right? And so I still can't completely unpack it, but I was either shy or scared or didn't want to visit with anyone. But when I embraced it, I realized I was a shy kid that still chose to go do gymnastics, or still chose not to bother my parents to come and pick me up. And so I think that, when we have, like you said, your insecurities and we study them and embrace them and learn why they're there, then we can unpack it and just become, stronger people because of that. So yeah. I just thought that was a wealth of information in those couple of sentences.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think I discover things like that all the time. It's like, that's why people go to therapy, is to try to figure out like, why do I feel the way that I feel? And then once you go back far enough, eventually the, light will switch, or the light will come on, and you're like, oh yeah, that's why. And I had a recent revelation. I can't remember. I think, I was talking to my mom and wife and my sister. We all went on a little trip to this ranch where there's a bunch of animals, and we had gotten all the kids to sleep. So the four of us were hanging out on the front porch. And I had mentioned, like, I've always had abandonment issues. I'm always afraid that people are going to leave me, or, that I'm not going to be good enough, or whether it's friends or family or whoever. I've always had that kind of in the back of my head, but I never knew why, because I was never abandoned as a kid. It's not like I was always, having to seek attention from people. Like I got a lot of attention. You know, I was in and out of the hospital, and I was always being like waited on and taken care of. And my mom took me to all these things. So I was like, why do I feel these issues with abandonment? Why am I so afraid of that? And then as it kind of like went off in my head, as a kid, I was in the hospital so much. And I remember it was scary a lot of the time because there were a lot of, near death experiences because of my asthma, and the surgeries were scary. They were really hard to go through and they hurt. And my mom was there with me through all of it. But a lot of the time when I would be in ICU, she wasn't allowed to sleep in the room there because it wasn't very big, and they needed, I can't remember the exact reasoning behind it, but she couldn't sleep in my ICU room. And I remember, it was so sad, but there was another, boy who was probably around my age. I was probably 8 or 9. And he was there for the same thing I had, which was asthma and pneumonia. And we were both in ICU, and we just had a curtain separating us. And he ended up passing while he was there. Mm-hmm. And I remember hearing his parents grieving, after all of that. And I remember my mom being there with me. But then at night, my mom would have to go sleep like in the waiting room, and then come in there, whenever I'd be awake. She'd wait for me to go to sleep, and then she'd go lay down on a chair and try to get some sleep too. And I remember that a few times that happened, and I'd wake up at night and I would panic because my mom wasn't there. And I was afraid that something would happen to me and my mom's not there with me. So I would like scream for the nurses to come, and I'd be like in a full panic, and they'd get on the intercom and page my mom and stuff like that. So there was several moments I remember as a kid that were traumatic, and it wasn't my mom's fault or anything, but where I'd wake up in the hospital scared, and my mom wasn't right there. And I think that could have been kind of one of the catalysts for why I may have abandonment issues now. So I don't know.
I'm just afraid that if I mention it to him, can change his mind about me.
But it was just kind of like something I thought of out of nowhere when I was talking to my mom, and I was like, oh, maybe that's it. So that's another reason, like being vulnerable and just talking about stuff, you end up coming to some realizations that you may not have had before. And it makes it easier to process and cope with once you do that. So, yeah.
And you're unpacking that right now, because it seemed like pretty recently I saw on Insta where those pictures of your family and animals. So it was just a minute ago that you're still unpacking all this.
Exactly. Yeah. We're constantly learning, about ourselves and the way we think and why we think the way we do. So it's exciting.
Well, we started to tiptoe into 1883, and we talked about, animals. So one of my questions is, on the set of 1883, did you have to learn how to, I guess you'd call drive a wagon? I know you grew up around animals, but did you have to learn about interacting with horses? It's a whole different set, right? 1883. So kind of unpack that a little bit for us.
It was a really, really cool set to be on. I was able to make a lot of great friends there and work with some really, really cool people. But a lot of them, so like Tim and Faith and like the main cast, they all went to cowboy camp. So a lot of them could already ride. Tim is a great horseback rider. But a lot of them could already ride and were experienced, but they went there just so they could really get it down and get used to the horses that they're going to be riding. They learned, how to rope, how to shoot guns, like all that stuff. So it's like boot camp essentially for cowboys. And so they did that. I didn't do any of that, but we did, like anytime we're on the wagon, usually me and the actress that played my wife, Amanda Jaros, we would be sitting there on the top. And then they'd have the stunt wagon driver sitting behind us inside the wagon, and he was one that's actually driving. So
thanks for it.
Yeah, it was fun, but it was that set was crazy. I think the budget per episode was like 15 million or more. It was just unreal. That's what we do for a whole season of The Chosen. And it was the biggest, most detailed set that I all the wagons and the people and we had 40 train of 40 wagons and all the horses and cattle. We saw shootouts. They turned all of downtown the stockyards in Fort Worth into the 1800s, and they put dirt in the road. And yeah, it was so cool to literally go back into the Wild West and get to play around there for a while.
Definitely. That's interesting. I'm so pleased that you told us about the wagon, because I would try to look and figure it out, but that's part of, movie magic.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it kind of starts at the end, the first episode. So did they shoot that at the beginning? Did they shoot the end at the beginning, or did they wait and shoot the beginning at the end?
None of this makes any sense.
No, they pretty much they shot that. So we started in Texas because the end we shot in Montana, but we started in Texas in like August. I think it was maybe September, but it was around that time. So we shot for a few months there, and then we shot that scene I think in November out in Montana. So we had been shooting for a few months before we got to the opening scene and also one of the end scenes. Yeah, it was kind of split up. Like we shot most of the first few episodes first, obviously, but then after that, it was kind of all over the place, where we'd shoot a scene from episode 4 and then we'd go to episode 9 and then, jump back and forth a lot. So yeah, it was a complicated shoot, but it's so isolated. The places we're filming, we'd have to, drive over an hour and a half sometimes just to get to set. And then once we're there, then we'd have to drive, in a van another 30 minutes to get to where we were filming. And it was a lot, but it was a cool experience.
Wow. Often when I'm watching something, I automatically am in mode where, how did it happen and how did the movie magic behind it. Well,
Yeah.
I was so invested in it, I forgot to think about the tornado scene,
Oh yeah.
And I typically do. I typically try to think about it. I saw your behind the scene footage. Really fun to see. So tell us a little bit about that day on set, or maybe it was days on set.
Yeah, it took a few days. So that was a lot of fun. They had huge fans set up that were blowing the grass, and it was such a clear day. Like it was kind of perfect because there wasn't a single cloud in the sky. It was totally blue, but it made it easier, I imagine, to add all of the CGI. Like they didn't have to take anything out. It's just it's like a blue screen. So it made their job a lot easier. But yeah, it was, those fans were so loud and so windy. You're just constantly getting dust. Like you blow your nose after, or like wipe your teeth and it's just black. The actress that plays my wife, was walking in that scene and initially, and I was in the wagon with the stunt driver. And that was pretty scary because as we're running full speed with the wind blowing these wagons. And by that point, that was pretty late in the shoot. We had already shot for a while at that point. So the wagons were kind of getting worn and torn. Like they weren't as sturdy as they were at the beginning. They were getting pretty rickety because we went over some rough terrain with those wagons over the months that we shot. So when we got to that, as we were going over all the bumps and the yucca plants and everything that we were riding over, every bump, it felt like the wagon was going to tip. It was a little scary. And then I jump out of the wagon and we run down and hide. And it was one of those things, like, speaking of, you never know if the camera's on you. I think you see my hair at one point in that scene. But we shot that scene for like 3 days, and there was like, I know there was other footage, but you just never know what's going to end up in the cut. But yeah, it was fun. That was one of the more exciting days on set, was the tornado scene, because getting to watch them toss the wagons in the air, and everyone, even when they weren't in the scene, like Tim and Faith and Sam and all of them weren't even shooting some of those days, but they came to set just to watch the wagons get launched. And the wagon scene where they're flying in the air, that was the last thing we shot, I think, before Christmas break. So everyone was on set there doing that. And then everyone, hugged and said goodbye before going home for Christmas break. So yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite experiences on that set.
Yeah, I can imagine just the excitement and the fun and the adrenaline, and then see how that's translated onto screen,
Yeah,
and then
it looked great.
Work and how much time is actually on screen. So yeah, I bet it was incredibly interesting and And you probably tasted dirt for a couple of days afterwards.
Yes. Yeah, that was rough, but it was, we definitely got our workout in running around doing all of that, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I became a Yellowstone fan after watching 1883, and it's pretty cool to see how things are leading from Yellowstone back to 1883. So
I still need to watch. I actually, I'm ashamed to say I haven't even watched Yellowstone yet. I've seen like little pieces, but I need to start watching that. Once I have more time, I'll sit down and start from the beginning.
Yeah. Once you start watching it, you're like, oh wow, that goes right from 1883. That's
cool.
There's even somebody from 1883 is in. There are a couple people.
Yeah.
But one's actually their time period from 1883. That's in season.
That's
4.
cool.
So yeah, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I'm glad I watched. I'm glad I watched 1883 first because it got me caught up on that.
Yeah.
We're on season 4 of Yellowstone right now.
Nice.
Yeah. 1883 was beautifully shot. Oh my goodness.
It was great. We the cinematographers for it and the directors were all like they were so great. Like we had helicopters that would get those big aerial shots, and it was it was really, really cool to watch how they did all of that.
So you had a accent in 1883, you have an accent in Washington's Armor, you have an accent obviously in The Chosen. What's the hardest? How did you come about those accents? What's your favorite?
The Chosen, my accent in The Chosen is definitely the easiest now. There every now and then there'll be some lines that are tricky, like there's one in season 3. There's a lot of there's like 5 words in it, and they all have like at least one R. So, and to roll the R's for each one, like that one's tricky. It's like a tongue twister. So you just have to break it down and do it slowly over and over and over. And then eventually you can say it like normal. But like there was, in season 2, there's one like that. I can't remember what that one was either. But for the most part, it's kind of second nature now doing Little James's accent.
My soul thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you. In a dry and weary land where there is no water.
Wow. 1883 wasn't that far off. It was kind of similar in some ways. It was a little more like Russian sounding, since my character is Romanian. But I actually, so Gratiela, who plays Thomas's love interest, the gypsy woman, she is Romanian as well in real life. So she was able to help me with like the enunciation of certain words. And, there are a few times where, in like The Chosen, we all speak English. So there's times where we're just talking in the background, so we can say anything to each other. But in 1883, my character doesn't speak English. I mean, very little English. So if I'm talking in the background, I wanted it to be authentic. So I would ask her like, hey, how do I say snake in Romanian? Like to point out a snake to someone. And she was like, șarpe. So then I was like, oh, șarpe. So then like things like that, I was able to, I had a teacher on set essentially that helped me with that. So she was very helpful in that regard. And so was, so Mark, who's another one of my good friends from that show, he plays Joseph, the main immigrant with the beard, I almost spoiled something. But his real wife, her name is Anna in real life. So her and him and their baby came with him wherever we were shooting. And I got close to all of them. And she's also Romanian. So she was able to help a little bit too. So yeah, but the hardest was definitely Captain LaForce in Washington's Armor. I don't know if have you all seen it yet?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So it was a tricky one. Like do the kind of French, like it almost feels like you're like clearing your throat, where you're like the kind of back of the throat noises that you have to make.
Yeah.
But Allah, who plays Simon the Zealot, actually helped me because he is from France. So he, for the audition for that show, I called him and was like, hey, can you record these lines in a French accent and send them back to me? So he did. And then they had a dialect coach once I booked it that helped as well. So that one was tricky, but it was fun. I love playing with accents. I did an audition a while ago I was like 14 or 15 for a movie where I had to learn a Welsh accent. And that was by far the hardest one that I ever had to do. But yeah, I love that challenge and getting to do, totally different characters, not just the types of characters, but like the way they speak and the way they move and all of that. It's a lot of fun.
Jordan, I have been looking forward to watching Washington's Armor for a while. We interviewed an actor and a producer of Washington's Armor, so we were desperate to watch it.
Yeah.
So fun to watch your part. So there's some scenes when we're on set where it's filmed multiple times and it's fun and you're almost sad when it's over because you want to film it more. And other times you stay in character, but you're like, how many more times do we need to film this? So your character, and I don't think I'm giving anything away, when he slams that knife onto the table.
And I demand a response to Governor Dinwiddie's letter.
You are in no position to demand anything, Major Washington.
Were you like, yeah, let's film that again? Just because, you're able to be tough and mean.
Yeah.
Or after a while where you're like, man, I'm going to cut my hand. Just tell us about that. Unpack that scene for us.
Yeah, that was a really fun scene. I was so looking forward to doing that because it's so tense and there's a lot of drama that builds up throughout the scene. But yeah, that was really fun. Originally the script had my character stabbing the table a little earlier, but I went to the director and asked if I could do it at that point, just because it felt more like a buildup, like it keeps building. And then I finally stabbed the table. I feel like if I stabbed the table a few lines earlier, that would have been the climactic thing. And then the rest wouldn't have been as intense. So I wanted the tension to build all the way up to that. And then it calms down. But I loved doing that. That was one of those scenes that I could have gone on forever. It took a long time to film it. And it was cold. We were up in Oklahoma at a museum. They have like this cabin that we got to use. And it took a while, but it didn't feel like it. That was one of those scenes that was just so much fun to do. Like I was like a little kid just playing pretend. There are, like in The Chosen, sometimes there's scenes where, if you're not speaking in the scene and you're just sitting and listening, everyone gives great performances, but those scenes can drag sometimes when you're filming because you're just like you don't have any, how many times do I have to move wood in the background and things like that. I remember one particular time for The Chosen, it was the scene at the guy's house who broke his leg and it gets healed the next day. We were there filming it and a bunch of us were coming down with a cold. And we were all nervous because this was like during COVID and everything earlier on.
That's why you wear these, gives you strength.
So we were all like, can you test us again? We want to make sure, because we were all feeling sick. And I was just starting to come down with it too. I had like this scratchy throat and I was tired and groggy, the feelings you get before you start really getting sick. So I was already feeling that. Plus it was a really cold night. Plus we were shooting until like 4 a.m. So it was a brutal one. And I don't speak in that scene. So I'm just sitting there and it's very, it's a scene where Jesus is talking to him and he's telling the story about how he broke his leg. But from where I was sitting and where they were talking so softly and quietly, I couldn't hear anything. So I was just sitting there at the table and they're talking so quietly. So I hear someone whispering off to the side. That's all I'm hearing. And other than that, it's just cold and quiet and dark. And I 3 different times during that scene dozed off. You can't ever tell, but I fell asleep it was the only time I've ever fallen asleep during a scene because I had nothing to do in it. It was just, I was exhausted. But yeah, the scenes where you get to really do some dramatic stuff and and be like have fun and like really get to act, those are the ones that like I could do that forever.
Do you like being the mild-mannered little James, or do you like being the villain kind of characters?
They're both like little James. There's a lot of he expresses his emotion in a different way. So like he's definitely, even before they adopted my disabilities into the character, he was already a lot more like myself. He's in touch with his emotions. He's, you know, he gets choked up by things. Like he isn't afraid to cry.
I was on my way to Jerusalem. I'm sorry. All of this is just it's difficult to talk about. Yeah, it reminds me of how much I miss him.
And things like that. Like I've enjoyed that aspect of little James a lot. And I love getting to be with that group of people.
Just the 12 of us. We can make it if we try.
Little James is the closest to my heart of any character I've ever played. But as far as like having fun as the character, LaForce was one that like that was just so playing. They always say that like playing villains is the most fun, and it's true. That was really, really cool. And it's also more challenging because like little James, he may do or say things here and there that it's like, oh, he shouldn't have said that or done that. Just like we all do. We all, you know, make mistakes, or we all get angry when we shouldn't, or, you know, things like that. But it's easier for a good, like a mild-mannered, like good-hearted person like little James justify when they do make a mistake or do something bad. But when it's a bad guy like Captain LaForce, as an actor, you have to justify their actions, because no matter what horrible things they're doing, because if you're playing that character justified their own actions. So you have to figure out in your mind, how could someone justify this? How could someone justify being this evil? But that's part of the fun, is like the psychology behind it. Like, okay, why is he like this? Why does he think what he's doing is okay? It's more challenging in that regard, which makes it more fun sometimes too.
Your casting director must be thrilled, because just with what we've talked about today, between The Chosen, 1883, Washington's Armor, and then even just your podcast, just being a person talking, all of that, they have so much dynamic to, you know, submit you for.
It's helped. Yeah, like my agent, I love her. Her name's Linda McAllister. I've been with her for over 10 years now. It's been a while. Like I before that, with her, or through her, I had booked one other role. And it was a commercial that I got cut out of. So she's stuck with me all this time. And now, you know, it's thankfully paying off. But that helps having, before my demo reel, which is what casting directors will look at to see if they want you to audition, didn't have much on it. It was like a couple nerdy characters I played in short films.
I mean, I'm pretty good, but knowing how to tango doesn't really help you in a fight. I'm small too, so maybe it would be better if I just had Jedi powers and I could mind trick the bullies into fighting each other. Do you ever wish you had Jedi powers?
No, but I'm starting to.
That was really it. There wasn't any real character work. You didn't get to see me do anything that was like that impressive, or that had that much substance. It was me saying a line or two in some show, and that was it. But now with The Chosen and all of these other things, it has given me a lot of material to be like, hey, look, these are all these different, you know, types of things that I can do. So, and there's another, hopefully I'll get footage from it soon, but another film I did called High, HI period. They're working on that now. I think it'll go in the festival circuit. And I have a small part in that, but I'm excited to see those scenes, because it's another different character I haven't played before.
So you act, you write, you direct, you produce. Anything that you want to add in on that? Just, is there a hat you enjoy more? Anything else that we should, you know, be watching for you on?
Yeah. Acting is always been and always will be my, like, where my heart is when it comes to my career. If given a choice between all of those, that's the thing that makes me feel most fulfilled. But it's been really cool finding these other outlets like the podcast and like writing and public speaking and stuff like that. That's been really fun, because I love doing that as well. As far as writing, I've always done that, but now I never thought like, oh, I'll be able to make this movie. Like it was it was fun, but now it's at a point where as The Chosen continues to grow, and like that's kind of what this industry is. If you get one role that kind of gets you on the map or whatever, it's easier to get other stuff and to get stuff made. So now all of a sudden these things that I've written feel like a little more of a reality. So that's exciting. And that's given me a little boost when it comes to writing, because it doesn't feel like it's just for fun anymore. Now it feels like it could actually lead to something. And then as far as producing and directing, I've only done like short films so far, but that's something I'm excited to explore more in the future. I would love to produce and direct more. And then I'm also starting to get into hosting with like events. Like I'm going to be hosting an actors panel for the Fort Worth Film Commission next month, and then I might be hosting a banquet for a charity later this year and things like that. So I'm starting to kind of dip my toe in that water as well, which is interesting. So yeah, I'm open to whatever. I'm kind of whatever doors open up and whatever opportunities present themselves. I'm excited to see where it all leads.
Awesome. That's great. So just a silly question. What's the craziest place you've ever been recognized as?
Ooh, let's see. Craziest place I've ever been recognized. I would say, recently I went to Tennessee for a speaking engagement, and I was recognized by two people at DFW airport and then two people at the Nashville airport. So that was kind of crazy. Like I'd never been recognized by that many people in that short amount of time. So that was kind of cool. But then I haven't been recognized too many crazy places. Okay, here one, it was just recently. I was down in Austin with Yoshi. We were doing a podcast recording for South by Southwest. And when we were down there, him and I had just gotten lunch, and we were walking to his apartment to get his girlfriend so she could walk with us to go do the podcast recording. And as we were walking, I had asked him like, hey, do you get recognized often? Because Yoshi and I are the only ones currently in Texas that live here. And most people are in LA. So we're more in the Bible Belt, so more likely to be recognized. So I was like, have you been getting recognized? And he was like, yeah, every now and then. It's, semi-frequently. And literally like 2 minutes after I said that, we were standing at an intersection, and a guy I saw kind of looking at me, and he was like, are you on The Chosen? And I was like, oh yeah, so is this guy. And he noticed Yoshi too. And he was like, oh wow. And he was there. He's an editor for some documentary that was showing there, and he got a picture with us.
I know you.
Do you?
That was kind of crazy because we had just talked about getting recognized and how it's still kind of surreal when we get recognized and then it happened. So yeah, it's I appreciate it because I'm such a movie fan myself and TV fan. Like when I would meet actors that I admire, I get excited because it's like, oh, I love this person. Like you feel like you know them. So to have other people feel that way about us is pretty cool. But yeah.
Yeah.
And Barb, I haven't had the chance of meeting you in person yet, Jordan, but did you want to mention?
Yeah, I got to meet you at NRB at the National Religious Broadcasters.
Right, yeah.
The live showing of episode 6. I got to be there and you actually signed that this.
Oh, nice. I see it. Yeah.
So your signature's on the back of that. So
nice.
Yeah, if you want to pull it down.
Yeah, that was surreal that whole day. Like that was 1,500 people. There we go. Look at that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. There was 1,500 fans there, and it was just me and Dallas were the only two there that we're getting to like meet with everyone. And I remember we stayed there the whole time, as like all 1,500 people pretty much came by and took pictures. And that was one of the first times that I've had that kind of experience, or that was other than like the Sermon on the Mount, that was my first time experiencing something like that. And it was the first time my wife got to experience it as well, because she had, seen on social media people getting excited about, my character or The Chosen. but being in person and seeing how excited everyone is about it, it's special getting to interact with all the fans. I love that.
Jordan, it has been just awesome hanging out with you, getting to know your heart and your just information on set, just so many fun details. We do need to wrap it up. Unfortunately, we'd love to hang out with you longer, but we know that we need to at some point carry on. I love how you end your podcast with what do you love most about yourself?
I love about myself.
That's a hard one because, you know, as you know, there's always, there's so much self-doubt.
I love that you do this at the end of your podcast. I listened to a few of them before talking to you and I was like, this is such a sweet thing to do.
So in all true fashion, we want to wrap up this with that same question.
Of course. I have been asked that by a few of my guests too, after I've asked them. And I feel like it changes every time. I guess it depends on my current mindset.
We won't have people check out the ends of all your podcasts.
Right.
Pretty different.
Yeah. I would say right now in this moment, I'd say my love for other people, because I really do love other people, and I typically can find the good in them, or at least understand where they're coming from. Like if someone does something I disagree with, or does something that would, may not be the nicest thing, I can typically look at that person and say, and have empathy for where they came from and what led to them making those bad choices. So I guess my love for people and seeing the good in people, I would say.
And that doesn't surprise me. You relay that very easily. I can tell that you care for people well just by your platforms that I follow. So it's very cool. And earlier you mentioned that, you're dipping your toe in the water of speaking engagements. I have a feeling you could jump full in because people would love to hear your story and have the chance to, hear from you.
Well, thank you so much. If I'm ever up in your area, I'll let y'all know, because I've been traveling a lot more. I'm going to Colorado this week actually to do one. So I'll keep y'all updated if I'm ever in your neck of the woods.
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
We're pretty centrally located.
Oh,
and
cool.
We're a little crazy. We're willing.
We'll go anywhere.
Last
Awesome.
week I was on the set of Jesus Revolution, and my son's birthday was the next day. So we wrapped up at 11:30, and I drove all night and got to my home at 11. And didn't sleep because I wanted to be there for my son's birthday.
Wow.
But that's not uncommon for us, like road trip, plane trip. So near or far.
I'll keep y'all updated then.
Yeah. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, Jordan.
Of course. Thank y'all. I'll talk to y'all later.
In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Do you want to clap?
Oh, sure. Give a little clap.
Thanks for coming and agreeing to do this, Dad. I love you so much. Yeah, we're rolling now. I was just saying like how much I love you and appreciate you, and
Not your dad, Jordan.
But like in a way.
I'm not your dad.
So, just about ready to get started on feeding the 5,000. Just stand a little
with your
further
favorite
away.
apostle,
Just stand a little further away.
James.
He wasn't supposed to be in this. Just cruised right up.
If you want to just stay on gallery view, and then I'll probably switch back and forth. You won't be able to tell that I'm switching back and forth, but when we need to look up or look at our questions, then we're not looking like we're looking for a ghost in the
right
closet or something.
We can't wait. Me and my best friend.
You got to make it not his best friend. That's not official.
More like
There's no
father son,
colleagues at best, and that's pushing it.
Well, and then I have to name another movie that actor is in, and then you have to name another actor in that movie. So we do that a lot. I'm the champion. I'm proud to say. maybe not biologically.
Not even a father figure. I'm not a father figure. Okay?
Well,
I don't embrace that role. I never wanted it. It was kind of forced upon me in season 1.
Tomato. So,
tomatoes or tomatoes. Let's just get this over with. He's a great guy.
Sorry, Rabbi. Sorry, Rabbi. I don't know how we got out.
It's okay.
Thank you.
No, but we're doing a video right here for 3 minutes.
We're doing a video, guys. We're doing a video.
3 minutes. Sorry, Rabbi. Won't happen again. Won't happen again.
We're doing a video.
We're not doing a video.
We're doing a video.
This is what I have to deal with.